Hi everyone, this is Yogeshwari, M.A. final student of Political Science. This video covers the article review of an article Bureaucratic Theory and Comparative Administration by Heady. So let's get started. In this article, Heady's 1959 Bureaucratic Theory and Comparative Administration represents a critical milestone in early development of comparative public administration as a distinct academic field. Responding to growing concerns about methodological rigor and theoretical clarity, Heady interrogates the relevance and applicability of Western bureaucratic theories largely derived from Max Weber and his successors when extending to non-Western societies. In this article, Heady studied the field of comparative public administration in its early developmental stages during the 1950s was characterized by an intense preoccupation with creating coherent methodologies and theoretical models that could guide empirical research across diverse societies. Heady's primary objective is to examine whether existing Western theories of bureaucracy, often assumed to be universally applicable, can adequately serve as the basis for cross cultural comparative research. His focus is sharpened by engaging with Mauro Berger's empirical study of Egyptian civil service, which challenged the assumptions that Western bureaucratic behavior norms would naturally manifest among bureaucrats in non Western transitional societies. Now, next, main summary of this article is Heady's article unfolds in response to a key intellectual debate emerging in the 1950s: how to systematically and comparatively study public administration across diverse global contexts. He begins by acknowledging the early achievements of comparative administration scholars but warns of a twin danger. First, accumulating vast quantities of descriptive data without clear conceptual guidance, or prematurely adopting rigid models that oversimplify the complex reality of administrative systems. The centerpiece of Heady's analysis is his engagement with Mauro Berger's study Bureaucracy East and West, which sought to compare Egyptian bureaucracy to Western norms. Berger attempted to measure Western bureaucratic predisposition among Egyptian civil servants using a bureaucratic scale built from survey responses. This scale emphasized traits such as rationality, hierarchy, professionalism, and personal initiative, believed to be typically of Western bureaucracy. However, Berger's findings confounded expectation. Egyptian civil servants exposed to Western influences did not score significantly higher on the bureaucratic scale than their peers. Heady dissects Berger's assumptions, pointing out inconsistencies in how Western bureaucratic behavior was defined. Heady then conducts a thorough review of bureaucratic theory, tracing its lineage from Weber's ideal type model, which outlined structural characteristics like hierarchy, technical competence, and rule boundedness, to later reinterpretation by scholars like Friedrich, Merton, and Blau. He highlights that while scholars largely agree on the structural features of bureaucracy, there is considerable disagreement over behavioral expectations. Given this theoretical landscape, Heady argues persuasively that comparative studies should emphasize structural characteristics which are more universally observable rather than behaviors which are deeply conditioned by cultural and socio-political factors. Bureaucratic structures such as hierarchy, professionalism, and rule based conduct can be identified across societies, but behavior like initiative, conformity, or discretion vary widely and cannot be assumed to align with any single universal model. Heady's broader insight is that by delinking bureaucratic theory from rigid behavioral expectations, scholars open up space for more nuanced, context sensitive empirical investigations. Instead of judging bureaucracies as more or less bureaucratic based on culturally specific behavior, comparative research should examine how different societies adapt bureaucratic structures to local conditions. Now, let's dive into the critical analysis of this article, dissecting its key points and evaluating its strengths and weaknesses. Heady's article stands out as a remarkably insightful and pioneering work in the evaluation of comparative public administration. Several strengths make this article a lasting contribution to this discipline. One major strength is Heady's logical systematic critique of Berger's approach. Heady does not reject the empirical findings gathered by Berger but rather scrutinizes the theoretical assumptions underlying the study. By highlighting the inconsistency in how Berger defines and measures bureaucratic behavior, Heady demonstrates the risk involved in applying ecocentric models to different cultural contexts. His careful dissection of Berger's methodology offers a model of scholarly rigor and critical engagement. Another important contribution is Heady's advocacy for structural analysis. By emphasizing structural features such as hierarchy, division of labor, and rule bound authority, systems such as the defining element of bureaucracy, Heady provides a framework that is both conceptually coherent and practically adaptable to different societies. Nonetheless, the article has certain limitations. While Heady convincingly critiques behavior centered approaches, he offers relatively few detailed prescriptions for how to operationalize structural comparisons in empirical research. This is a notable lack of concrete methodological guidance for future researchers seeking to apply his ideas systematically. Additionally, although Heady acknowledges cultural variability, he tends to treat structural features of bureaucracy like hierarchy as somewhat static and universally applicable. In practice, even structural characteristics may vary significantly in meaning and function across societies, suggesting a need for even deeper cultural contextualization than Heady anticipates. Despite these limitations, Heady's article represents a profound methodological and theoretical advances. It set the stage for later development in comparative administration, development studies, and public management theory that continues to stress the importance of culturally sensitive, empirically grounded, and theoretically flexible approaches. And this article can be concluded as Ferrel, Heady's bureaucratic theory and comparative administration remain a cornerstone in the discipline of comparative public administration. By offering a meticulously reasoned critique of behavior based bureaucratic models and advocating instead for an emphasis on structural characteristics, Heady redefined the term of inquiry for an emerging field. His approach recognizes the diversity of bureaucratic behaviors across political, cultural, and social contexts without viewing deviations from Western norms as deficiencies. Instead, he promotes a more open, pluralistic, and contextually grounded study of administrative system. Although challenges remain in translating structural concepts into empirical research design, Heady's insight continues to offer crucial guidance. His work underscores the importance of theoretical sophistication, methodological openness, and empirical sensitivity, principles that are as relevant today as they were in 1959.